Minnesota Twins, they hold on for their second win in a row in Texas. It was a nail-biter. Final score 4-3. We're breaking it all down next on the Locked On Twins postcast.
You are Locked On Twins postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Minnesota Twins postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. It's your team every day. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, CJ Baumgartner, Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. Give him a follow. He's on X, at BaumCJ30. CJ, little drama at the end tonight. How worried were you at the end when we had to wait around, kind of stick around for that challenge right at the end? Were you a little worried?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit because it was 7-8-9 coming up. That 9-hitter able to get on, and Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, those guys at the top of the lineup. I remember texting you, and I was like, "That's going to come back to haunt, isn't it?"
Right. Well, we're Minnesota sports fans, man. We're just hardwired like this. We'll get into it all. Plenty to get into, in fact. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code, this is all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, so you got game 2 versus Texas in Texas, still trying to chip away at this lead. I feel like we've been saying this all year, but chip away at this Cleveland lead for the AL Central Division lead. SWR on the mound tonight. 5th inning, let's just fast forward. 5th inning, tied up 1 apiece. Carlos Santana goes yard, this one proved to be a huge 3-run shot. That made it 4-1. That was kind of just enough for SWR, Simeon Woods Richardson. He went 5 strong, only 2 earned runs, consistent as they come. Bullpen does just enough, and it just kind of felt like another total team effort. If, I'm kind of simplifying things a little bit, we'll get into all the nuts and bolts, but another total team effort tonight. Twins hold on. They win it 4-3. They win their second in a row. Division lead, more importantly, goes down to 3 games. Just start like always. Biggest takeaways, kind of your 8 topics. Then we'll do a little deep dive on Simeon Woods Richardson's night a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I mean, overall, just the bullpen doing its job for the second night in a row, hanging on to the lead. The Twins had to use their A1 guys. They had to go with Duran. They had to put in Griffin Jacks. Duran pitched for the 3rd game in a row after we talked the last time we spoke about, hey, they haven't used Duran in a while, and Jacks, they saved him up. And that was good because they had to use them each of the last 3 nights. So for the bullpen to hang on and do its job, really, really huge. And just, again, you can only get 1 game at a time, but you're 1 game closer to trying to catch Cleveland in the AL Central.
Yeah, absolutely. Simeon Woods Richardson, man. I mean, can't say enough about him. How many rookies do you see come in here? And granted, this is 22nd, 23rd start, something like that on the year. I should pull that up. But yes, he's had a bad outing or 2. But how many rookies do you see come in here and night in, night out, start in, start out, I should say, be as consistent as he has been? 5 innings tonight. Okay, I know the leash is a little bit shorter. 2 earned runs, only had 1 K, I get it. 2 walks, but all in all, how'd his stuff look tonight, I guess, first of all? But bigger picture, it's just not very common for a rookie to come out here and be this consistent, is it?
Right, exactly. I mean, they're up and down typically, and there's blow-up outings here or there. But the thing that Simeon Woods Richardson has been able to do is been able to just give you that consistent, 5 runs, 5 innings with 3 runs or less allowed. And yeah, there's been some blow-ups here and there, some starts that have gone shorter than what he wanted them to. But generally speaking, Simeon Woods Richardson has been huge. And we talked about this a lot in the first half of the season, and now it's really showing itself. But when Simeon Woods Richardson first stepped into the rotation, the Festa wasn't ready. Zebby Matthews definitely wasn't even thought of as being major league ready yet or even close to it. So when Louis Varland got sent down, it was all on Simeon Woods Richardson really to hold down that 5th spot in the starting rotation. And not only did he do that, but he's paved a way to where next season he may etch his name into that opening day rotation. And it's been really huge because, rookies are a little inconsistent. And I know Woods Richardson has pitched like in bits and pieces over the last couple of years, but for all intents and purposes, this is like his first full stint of big league action. And again, he didn't draw a ton of whiffs. He drew no swings and misses with the fastball, had a couple whiffs with the slider and the changeup, and had one with his curve. So overall, had 5 whiffs, which isn't a ton throughout his outing. He did get hit hard a little bit, which is why the Twins held him to 5 innings. But again, he's your back end starter. And every time Simeon Woods Richardson leaves the game, most times the Twins are in a position to win the ball game, or they're right there, which is all you really can ask for.
Yeah, well said. Good breakdown there. And just like last night, as you kind of teased at the top, the bullpen really comes through in the clutch. They get the job done. Just knowing, especially, since Joe Ryan's obviously shelf for who knows how long, but just knowing a lot more SWR, David Festa, possibly Zebby Matthews as well. And just knowing Rocco probably ain't going to give those guys a very long leash. Just how much more pressure is going to be on the bullpen now, these final 40 games or so, because I can't imagine, you tell me if I'm wrong, I can't imagine you see any of those guys go any further than 5 innings. And that's like best case scenario, more nights than not. So he's got them all on a tight pitch count, I would imagine. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really just to protect them from themselves, right? So Simeon Woods Richardson has had a good ERA, and so people will say, well, why doesn't he pitch in the games longer? The comeback to that would be, well, in a way, his numbers look good because we're pulling him preemptively. We're avoiding that blow-up inning, because if you give Simeon Woods Richardson 1 extra inning in a few of his other starts, maybe there is that blow-up inning around the corner where he would leave instead of 2 runs allowed with 4 runs allowed, and then the Twins are losing the game or something along those lines. And that line of thinking gets extended to Festa, to Zebby Matthews, of just, let's pull these guys early. We want to build their momentum up. They're not used to throwing this many pitches, this many innings at the major league level. So it's just kind of slow, gradual build for their arm, for the trust of the manager. And yeah, it puts a ton of pressure on this bullpen, because in the second half of the season, the Twins bullpen has been one of the worst in baseball. I think the highest ERA of any bullpen since the All-Star break. And that puts a lot of pressure on those guys to try and contribute when they haven't done a lot in over a month or about a month now. And it really does put a lot of pressure on those guys at the top with, let's be honest, the kind of big 3 now has been Duran at the top, Jack's right behind him, and then Jorge Alcala, the number 3 on the bullpen pecking order. So it puts a lot of pressure on a unit. You got to pick your poison. Do you overrun some rookies, or do you overrun a group that, hasn't been impressive over the last month? And it's a not ideal situation the Twins are going to have to be in for the final month of the season.
Well, okay, good segue. Going to put you on the hot seat here. Just something to think about. And maybe this is a no-brainer, but assuming Joe Ryan's toast for the year, who starts a game 3 in the playoffs for this Minnesota Twins team? Is SWR, is Simeon Woods Richardson the no-brainer, or is there a conversation that needs to take place?
I think if it were today, it'd probably be Simeon Woods Richardson, but I don't think it'd be like a traditional Simeon Woods. I don't think it'd be a traditional playoff start. It would look similar to what the Twins did with Joe Ryan in game 4 of the ALDS last year, where he went through the lineup 1.5 times. And, from like the 3rd inning on, it's a bullpen game, and you can kind of manufacture that a little bit, because then you could throw in David Festa or Louis Varland or Zebby Matthews to come in and throw a couple more innings and get through lineup another time before you kick it to the bullpen proper for the rest of the game. But I think it would probably look a little something more like that, just because, with any pitcher, but specifically with someone like Simeon Woods Richardson, when they get to that 3rd time through the order, things can get really hairy really quickly, which is why I would assume it'd be some version of what we saw Joe Ryan do a year ago in the ALDS, if it comes to like a wild card series game 3 or something like that.
Well, now you got my wheel spinning here. So what's a playoff bullpen look like? So Cole Sands, Alcala, Jax, Duran, those 4 for sure.
Okert.
But who else? Okay, Okert. Okay, Okert. Thank you. Louis Varland, Festa, Zebby. You kind of, touched on those guys. Maybe Paddock. Where's your lefties? Do we need more lefties in the mix there?
It depends on how Thielbar is. The Twins have confidence in Thielbar, not as much as they did at the beginning of the year, but Rocco, he likes to give some credit to the veterans. He likes to, for better or worse, that can, your opinion on it can be whatever, but he is somebody that has shown a willingness to give Caleb Thielbar innings. So it'll be interesting to see if he is, but Funderburk, I know he's been hurt. I know he's kind of, it's not been the year that he's wanted, but pretty much it's just Okert and Thielbar, and Okert by default is the bullpen's top left-handed arm. So pretty much those 2 guys would be in a playoff bullpen. But yeah, it depends on what you want to do. If Louis Varland always gets talked about as being that guy that gets turned into a bullpen arm. There's Chris Paddock, and again, do you put a Zebby Matthews or a David Festa? Do you trust them? Because at that point, it's all about trust. And if you feel like those rookies aren't quite ready for it, you're probably going to opt for a veteran like Paddock.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to consider, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of different variables. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but something to think about and kind of a fun conversation to have. Rocco report time. So game 2 versus Texas, the Rocco report, it says what?
Well, I know Rocco Baldelli doesn't like to do this, but, going with Duran 3 days in a row, that could be, you could try and work Jorge Alcala in today, or I can't remember how the bullpen kind of chart looks for usage, but, that's maybe a day where you say, oh, look, it's game 2 of a 4-game series. Maybe we try and push Duran off another day, try and give him a day of rest. But it's like, you know what? We're chasing Cleveland. We have a lead right now. There's no guarantee about tomorrow. Let's go win this game today. We're throwing Jax. We're throwing Duran at the Rangers, and we're going to go get that win. It was 7-8-9. With that final inning. So you maybe didn't have to go to Duran, but with a 1-run game, and again, with how tight everything is at this point in the season, every game means a little bit more. He opted to just lean into it and go with this guy. Now, Duran is probably not going to pitch the rest of the series, but you've guaranteed yourself a split in this 4-game series with Texas, which 4-game series on the road, if you can at the very least split those, you're in a very good spot, and they're playing with house money the next 2 days.
Yeah, well said. Good Rocco report per usual. All right, plenty more deep dive from this one. Plus, we do have our nerdy stat of the day, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, this episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships. Also what keeps your ride or die alive. In eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, they got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back with all the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Okay, before we get too far here, any type of updates on guys like, Byron Buxton, still thinking about Correa? I feel like there's been so many injuries, honestly, to try to kind of keep tabs on. Is there anyone else like, Brooks Lee, I guess that's close to coming back, that could possibly move the needle a little bit as well?
Yeah, pretty much Byron Buxton with the hip discomfort got moved to the IL. I mean, it's obviously a blow to your team to lose Buxton, especially over the last couple months. He was hitting like a 300 average. He was putting the ball in play, playing great defense, and it stinks to see him go like that. But, again, the hope is that this is just like precautionary. Let's rest him. Let's get him ready for a stretch run. He'll come back about September, like early September, and then you have him to try and clinch a playoff spot. Now, the cynic can say, look, every time Byron Buxton goes on the IL, it's always a mystery when he'll actually come back and play, no matter if the injury is perceived to be major, minor, whatever. But that's where things stand. With Carlos Correa, good question. It feels like it's been a ghost town. I know basically they're trying to rest him because of that plantar fasciitis, and he played through that last year in his other foot. Right. But I mean, we all know he was not good at the plate. He played an okay shortstop, but I think basically he's just trying to make sure when he comes back, he can be as close to his old self as possible, which was an all-star. And it'll just be interesting to see when he comes back, because I know they're winning without him, and Willie Castro made a nice play in the 9th inning. I mean, he's done a serviceable job filling in at shortstop. There's just only plays Carlos Correa can make. And the sooner he gets back here, and just from a leadership standpoint, have him in the dugout, on the field, doing all that stuff, it just really take the team to another level.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. Echo all those thoughts and more. I don't expect you to have this specific answer top of your head, but where do you think the Twins rank when it comes to teams with the most guys on the IL this year? Or maybe I should word it like this: guys with most days, I guess, on the IL from a team standpoint, I guess. It feels like a lot, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, it does. And it really is hard to tell. I know that there's a stat that tracks that, and I don't have it off the top of my head.
I'm
But
going to
yeah, I
try
mean,
to pull it up as you continue.
right. Everybody has their, everybody's got injuries. Everybody's got stuff that they have to deal with. I know, yeah, names escaping me. One of the top pitchers for Milwaukee right away as the season started. I think Devin Williams was the name that comes to my head. Started the year hurt. There's just a couple guys where it always, for every team, they always have to deal with some kind of injury, some kind of thing that's going to set them back. But yeah, I mean, for the Twins to have it come at the end of the towards the end of the season, all-star break with Correa, now going into mid-August with Joe Ryan, it really just chips away at your confidence, because we remember in 2019 the Twins won over 100 games, but they limped into the playoffs
Right.
so bad that you had Jake Cave starting playoff games for you and Randy Dobnak as the starting pitcher. So I mean, like, it's all about when you feel the most healthy sometimes, and when it happens at this point in the year where there's not a ton of time to come back, it's also can be very frustrating.
You ready for this?
Okay.
They rank 15th out of 30.
League
15th
median.
out
Okay.
of 30. So smack dab in the middle, super average, super normal. I will say, though, just thinking about this here on the fly, if you dug deeper into the entire league, I wonder how many of those teams lost their, I mean, you could argue 3 best players all at once, or for long stretches anyways, because Twins didn't have, obviously, Royce Lewis for a huge chunk, don't have Correa for a huge chunk of time. Buxton's been a lot better on a great pace, but still obviously very fragile. And then there's the Joe Ryans, Brock Stewarts, Topas, Mirandas, Kirilloffs, et cetera, as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's not it's just raw number of days that a player has been on the injured list. It doesn't take into account that star factor,
the importance,
of
the WAR factor, and all that,
right.
The value. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm sure somebody's got there's a stat for everything. I'm sure something somewhere out there has been tracking it. But yeah, I mean, for the Twins, just the amount of days that Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis, and Byron Buxton have all been in the lineup together at the same time. I think we have enough fingers and toes to make that work over the course of the last 3 seasons, which is mind-boggling, because the Twins, for the most part of the last 3 seasons, have been a competitive team, and that's without their 3 best, highest ceiling players playing at the same time for a majority of it.
That might make a phenomenal nerdy stat someday. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying it might make a phenomenal nerdy stat someday. So, okay, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but who do you blame? We're Minnesota sports fans, so we got to blame someone. Is this like the types of guys they've gone after? And again, keep in mind here, we're talking about smack average in the league, right? Smack in the middle, 15th out of 30. So it's really not that bad, but Minnesota sports fans, we got to blame somebody. Strength and conditioning coach thing? Is it a Rocco thing? How he's using these guys? Is it a Derek Falvey thing up in the, the GM room? Like, what is it? Or can you talk us off the ledge a little bit more?
I'll talk you off the ledge a little bit. And one is that injuries are just fluky. I mean, like, that's
part of the game.
I don't know why we'd be so paranoid about injuries. That like some starting quarterback
too
or something.
Too soon. No. Yeah.
I know, it's bummed me out. And yeah, injuries, I mean, it's just fluky. Like, you can do everything right. You can do everything right to try and control somebody. The Twins tried to do this with Buxton a couple of years ago, and he still got hurt. I mean, the Dodgers, the team that we all perceive as to be this par excellence of baseball, player development and scouting and coaching and all this kind of stuff, they get flack all the time for how they treat their not treat, but I guess the approach that they have with their pitchers. Younger arms has a very high likelihood of them getting hurt and having Tommy John surgery. And that's why you see the Dodgers every postseason limp in with starting pitching, because they wear on their guys. So it's not, and the Twins don't do the same thing the Dodgers do, but every team is going to say that they want to do this and that to try and protect their players, and the team isn't doing enough and whatever. And part of it's just sports. I mean, people are going to get hurt playing sports, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. But yeah, I mean, every team, because rightfully are only focused on their team, sometimes doesn't always get that bigger picture to say it happens, it sucks, but it's sometimes there are some things that can tip the scales, no doubt, but generally speaking, injuries are out of everybody's control.
Yeah, well said there. Kind of random, but we've seen Zebby Matthews now, we've seen David Festa now this year, Brooks Lee obviously as well. How about Emmanuel Rodriguez? What's his status? I know there was a lot of buzz around him not that long ago, a month or two. So I'm just kind of curious what his status is, and maybe possibly just an ETA on when you expect we could see him up in the bigs someday?
Probably not this season. I mean, a best case scenario to be sometime halfway through next season. He's close, but also, he got hurt at the, speaking of injuries, he got hurt at the
They're
beginning.
just
Like,
fluky though. That's just a
right.
coincidence.
Exactly. Just a coincidence too that the Twins' top prospect Walker Jenkins missed a lot of time this season, crashing into the wall in his first game of the year.
15th out of 30 though.
Yeah. What are the other teams doing, man? That's what I want to know.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, the injury to Manuel Rodriguez set him back this season. I don't think he would have had to have like a Zebby Matthews, Luke Keyshaw meteoric rise to really sniff the big leagues this season. But this is kind of the year that was going to set him up for next season to have that chance to make the leap. But yeah, I think, he hasn't been lighting the world on fire, but I think he's been putting up some nice numbers still kind of in that high A or I believe double A at this point. So again, still trying to climb his way up that ladder, but at best case scenario, it's next season. There's not a realistic chance that we see him this year.
Got it. Okay. Put him in the back of our minds for now. All right. Nerdy stat of the daytime. You got some sort of crazy stat or, fun analytic Twins related. What do you got tonight?
So Carlos Santana, the first up until, April 30th of the year was not good. He had a 189 average, 75 weighted runs created plus, which league average is 100. So he was well below a below average player. He was not good and led some skeptics on social media who shall not be named that maybe said, just maybe he was cooked. I don't know. Don't look at my Twitter feed. But since that point, since April 30th, he has lit the world on fire. From May 1st on, he has a 124 weighted runs created plus. His batting average is up towards 260. And in all of this, with Carlos Santana, he's just been one of the better players on this Twins team. And you've seen it. The guy all of a sudden has like 20 home runs or 15 home runs. Like, where did this come from? And again, went from 75 weighted runs created plus on May 1st to now all of a sudden from that point on to be over 100 plus. And now his season, he's an above average player. The entire season is a 112 weighted runs created plus. Has really, really turned himself around and proved some of the haters wrong. And I guess I got to be put in on that.
Hey, we were talking about, I think it was with Sweet Lou, maybe it was yourself, but we were talking about The Athletic last week, came out with the top 50 free agents in MLB going into next offseason and how the Twins didn't have one free agent in the top 50. We were talking about, what a great young core they have to build around for a while, should have some good continuity and chemistry for at least a year or two. And the first response, I believe it was Sweet Lou, the first response was, no Carlos Santana on there? Not in the top 50? Are you kidding me? So, hey, don't beat yourself up. I don't think you're the only one. All right, don't go anywhere. Got to preview Game 3 versus Texas. Pablo Lopez on the mound for that one. And that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. And for me and my money, it's by far the easiest. It's the most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. So simple. All you got to do, you pick more or you pick less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season, obviously in full swing here. So whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app, use code, and this is all lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, Game 3 versus Texas tomorrow. Trying to get number 3 in a row. Pablo on the mound. What's the game plan? What's the scouting report? The blueprint, if you will, for that matchup. And also, too, I know we've got a bigger sample size now. And we talked about this a lot closer to kind of the all-star break. But why do you think we just haven't gotten the same dominant Pablo Lopez that we saw last year? Like, where's your quote-unquote panic meter, I guess, getting the 2023 Pablo back?
Yeah, I mean, the panic meter is the fact that he hasn't figured it out yet. And even towards this time a year ago, he was starting to, I mean, he wasn't as bad at the first half of last year as he has been this season. And it's not like he's been awful, but it just from an ace level stuff, he has not been producing it for the majority of this season. But it was around this time a year ago where all of a sudden we started every time we went on the mound to go, oh, that's an ace. Like that's a guy who's like putting ace level stuff out there. And it hasn't quite clicked for me yet. He's been effective, but he hasn't been like dominant, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for him tomorrow, it's really just going to be keeping the ball in the ballpark with some of those guys. When you look at Semien, when you look at Seager, Adolis Garcia for the Texas Rangers, keeping the ball in the ballpark and just trying to get a long start, trying to not only get outs, but to be efficient, because I could see Rocco trying to, I mean, he could get a long leash tomorrow if that pitch count and if that, exit velo and stuff like that all looks good. I would see Rocco willing to give him 6-7 innings to try and get that bullpen all rested up. And that's going to be really huge. Pablo Lopez is going to have to, again, it's been that pitch, not selection, but it's just more of that location. And they've just been getting a little bit, he hasn't quite had the control that he's wanted to over his pitches, which has allowed them to kind of get too much of the plate and allowed them to take him deep, which has been his problem this season.
Yeah, well said there. Just real quick, we got about 2-3 minutes, then we got to get out of here. How many MLB stadiums have you actually been to? Like, how many you got crossed off the list? Because why bring it up? Just real quick, my family and I, we used to do a lot of baseball road trips as a kid, got in the conversion van, and we were on our way. Wrigley, Old County Stadium, New County Stadium, Comiskey back then at the time, been to Houston, Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium. Out of all the stadiums, though, Kauffman, and for whatever reason, Arlington Park, which I know is now Globe Life Field Park, but those were my two favorites. So curious how many stadiums you've been to, I guess. MLB specifically, let's just tonight keep it MLB. And then which one's your favorite?
I mean, it's weirdly, I've only been to 2 Major League Baseball stadiums, and one was Target Field, obviously, and the other is the Metrodome. And I think we just got to go with Target Field because it's Metrodome's got some vibes. It's got a lot of nostalgia. It's really cool. In high school, our team got to play like a game on the Metrodome, like a bunch of other teams got the opportunity to do. And like for nostalgic purposes, it's really cool. But in terms of an actual baseball stadium, I mean, it's Target Field.
Okay, so you've been to 2. Yeah, by a mile. You've been to 2. What about just like the visuals when you see them on TV? When you see the Twins, you watch almost every single Twins game every year. When you see the Twins traveling to all these different stadiums, which one really catches your eye then? How about that?
Wrigley always catches my eye because, I mean, it's Wrigley. And the fact that it's a National League ballpark, so we really never have gotten to see the Twins play at Wrigley, and we're going to get to see them more now. But, I mean, really, I've seen the Twins play at Wrigley like 2 series growing up as a kid. So getting to see that ballpark, and I know it's changed a lot over the last 5 years, but that's always one with the brick and the ivy and just that atmosphere. That's one that's like on my ballpark bucket list of like places I have to go to at some point. Wrigley Field is like ballpark number 1 for me.
So you probably get a kick out of the fact if I told you I saw Sammy Sosa hit not 1 but 2 out in Wrigley in 1998. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool day for me. Definitely checked off a big one on my bucket list as well. Comment below your favorite stadium, by the way. What's your favorite stadium you've personally been to, or even your favorite stadium you've just seen on TV? That'd be cool to hear from you guys. We'd love to know what you think. All right, last one real quick, then we got to roll. What else is going on around the league, maybe around the division specifically? What else have you been kind of keeping tabs on in the back of your mind outside of just the Minnesota Twins?
I mean, the American League like runs through the AL Central. It's crazy how the AL West a year ago was this dominant force with the Rangers, the Astros, and the Mariners all fighting for playoff positioning. And now the Kansas City Royals, who are cemented in 3rd place right now in the AL Central, would by a couple games be the 1st place team in the AL West. And it looks like the Astros just lost the series at home to the Chicago White Sox. So like, what is going on with the AL West this year, and specifically Houston? Crazy.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And we're getting close to crunch time here. Most teams got about 40 games left, starting to ramp up a little bit in the intensity department, and I absolutely love that as well. Twins win their 2nd in a row tonight. Cleveland lost division lead down to 3. Game 3 tomorrow versus Texas. First pitch, 6:05 p.m. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game right here, breaking it all down. You got to go check out all of CJ's work on X at BombCJ30, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com as well. Go like this video, subscribe to the channel. So close to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated. But that'll do it for us tonight. CJ Baumgartner, Luke Inman on X, at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.